This is Taylor Elwood, and tonight I am doing the ritual of the final harvest. Getting used to some new stuff here too. I've called in Eros and Aphrodite to this space. And tonight, what I'm doing, just readjust a little bit here. Tonight, what I'm doing is I'm about to create a theme for the year. Now, a lot of times when people think of a theme of the year, usually think, going with the Julian calendar, like, oh, January, that's the time to do it. But I think that really the time to do it is actually Samhain. Samhain is the end of the final harvest. It's the final harvest, and it's the beginning of the long endarkenment of winter. And while technically winter doesn't start until the 21st of December, the reality is that winter has already started, at least in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, well, you're in the midst of you're starting to experience summer. Congratulations. So tonight, what I thought I would do is create this, is start to create create my theme for 2020. Well, the end of 2025, beginning of and most of 2026. This is what I did last year. I created my the last couple of years. I created my theme for 2024 was confidence, assertiveness. And then in 2025, around this time of the year, I created one around leadership. And boy, 2025 really was about leadership. It was an exploration of leadership in my life on so many different levels. I went to a couple of different men's work experiences that were framed around leadership. I took a couple classes. I did a whole bunch of other things, and I led myself in a very real sense to my sovereignty and to the sovereign submission, which is if you go to my I have a Substack for my men's work. It's called sovereignsubmission.substack.com. If you go there, you can see my work around that. It's funny. I was talking with a fellow coach in men's work recently, and he'd asked me what my theme of the year was, and I told him leadership, and then he said, "Well, you've found your leadership." When I was describing some of the things that I'm doing and kind of the stuff, and really kind of exploring, in my particular case, the men's work around sovereign submission. And I wonder if you guys can hear me. Well, I don't even know because no one's on here. I'm assuming you can. And it became very clear to me that this is what I was stepping into. Men's work framed in the perspective of sovereign submission. Well, here I am now. And it's funny, my birthday is in part why I also do the theme around, because it's really, for me, my theme of the year starts and ends with my birthday. And on my birthday, I ended up really coming to recognize where I have sometimes not been fully in presence in my life, where I'm checked out. and that's not really where I want to be. And part of it though was a realization around something essential. So it's presence, embodied presence, and its integrity. So I decided that my theme for this year is embodied presence, integrity, with integrity and integrity, or integrity and embodied presence. Maybe that's the better way to go. So right now, what I'm going to do, take a crayon like this. I'm going to write it at the top. I'm going to start cutting out some stuff from newspapers and magazines that I've collected over time. So first, we write out what it is. Integrity, embodied presence. What I'm doing here is I'm creating a collage sigil. A collage sigil, a collage sigil is a use a different color. A collage sigil is essentially an embodiment of, it's taking all the meaning out of like the original newspaper magazines, and creating new meaning. Integrity, embodied presence. You might wonder why that theme, Taylor. Well, integrity for me is an exploration of what does it even mean to be an integrity? What does it mean? I'm going to start cutting stuff up here. Oh, one of the other things that we do, we use glue. Glue is the primal liquid, if you will, the primal power of this whole thing. So let's start with that. Embodied presence is really about embodying who and what I am fully in my life, showing up with full presence in what I do and in who I am with. Fate and fire. Because the thing is if we're not showing up in embodied presence, we're not showing up at all. Kind of feel like this is a good example. No, I am fully showing up. Whether anyone's here or not watching this, I'm here. It's showing up fully embodied. For me, this kind of comes down to question of how I want to show up in my life. And I want to show up with integrity. What I came to realize this last year is that, like to be a leader in one's own life, you have to have integrity. Have I always had integrity? Here's the hard truth. No, I have not always had integrity. Most people won't admit that. We played our image, but the reality is that we are, you know, the reality is that we are necessarily called in. I'm calling myself in, I'm recognizing where I haven't fully shown up in the way that I want in my life. And I'm doing this with Aphrodite and Eros witnessing, because without being witnessed, it just becomes performance. It's ironic, because if it's like, oh, well, we're being witnessed, isn't that the performance in and of itself? Not necessarily. Tonight, people are trick or treating. We go into Halloween parties, and here I am at home. I've just gotten back from a trip. I was up in Canada visiting my beloved, and I'm recognizing like how do I show up? Where do I show up? What does it mean to show up? That's what this next year is all about. And I'm doing it as the final harvest. This is the final harvest of leadership. So these themes lead into each other. For me, assertive and confidence, the final harvest was leadership. It's like, okay, you become more confident, and now you need to step into leadership in your life with that. And then leadership has led me to stepping into integrity and an embodied presence with integrity. Where will integrity and embodied presence lead me? I don't know. We'll find that out next year. But I think it's really important that we get clear on who we are and who we want to become. And for me, the final harvest of leadership being this sense of integrity and embodied presence was huge. I was called into it on this trip where I was away. I was fully called into it. There was a moment where I broke down crying because I saw how much my life had been shaped by pressures that weren't serving me anymore, had never really served me. And to be able to call that and recognize it freed me up to see even more clearly what it was that was missing. Welcome, Sheena. Welcome, Karen. So this harvest, we're in this process now, and just to show you guys, what I'm doing is I'm cutting stuff out of here and I'm putting it onto what's going to become a collage. So I've cut out fate and fire, what if, the eye, and I've written down integrity, embodied presence. I'm cutting these things out and I'm creating with this final harvest what I'm going to carry with me into the endarkenment of winter because we're stepping into the long endarkenment. Today, in a very real sense, Samhain, right? It is the final summer, it is the final bounty. And we're stepping into the long winter now, if you're in the northern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere, you're stepping into summer. But we're not in this, I'm not in the southern hemisphere. You might be, you may not be. Um, but we're stepping into it and we're moving forward fully into the next phase. And so it's good to kind of look at it in this way and actually ask ourselves, what is it I want to do with the final harvest? The final harvest is about preparing ourselves for the winter because we know in the winter that nothing's going to be growing. So we're storing it away, we're seeding it, we're letting it germinate. And in a very real sense, that's what this is about. What I'm doing right now with this magical working, where I'm being witnessed by Eros and Aphrodite, by my other spirits, is I am setting the intention and the awareness and yes, the presence of this year and allowing it to start the process of transformation. And this work may start slow at first. I'm setting up the theme of the year right now, and it's going to trickle in. And yet, it's interesting because it already has. Like one of the one of the things that kind of came up was a question that a friend of mine asked me the other day. She asked me, "What's the difference between impulsivity and intuition?" And today, I was exchanging voice notes with Sheena, and she said, "Well, you know the difference between impulsivity and intuition because you can feel it. Like sit with that in presence. Don't just think about it up here. Be in presence with it." Well, that's a really good point. What is the difference between intuition and impulsivity? When are we acting from integrity instead of from neediness or something else, performance? In a very real sense, what I'm finding is that my magical journey is continuing to intersect with my men's work journey. And to be clear, with magical experiments isn't about my men's work journey. It's about the magic itself. And it's about the experimentation of magic. It's about where things go and transform. And that's always going to be the case. But in my own life, living the magic means living it in every area of my life. And for me, that right now is this work around my journey as a man and becoming a healthy, embodied, present man, a mature man, a man who shows up in full devotion and service to the magic, to the people that he loves, to the writing and the art and everything else, and shows up with the full awareness that is deserved. This isn't this isn't the immature masculine whining and crying out of neediness or entitlement. This is about showing up in full devotion to the erotic current with integrity, with presence and embodiment. So that's what the final harvest of leadership is. It's creating that. It's creating that. My cat started to nose the phone. I'm like, nah, dude, you got to go away. See you, Obsidian. Yeah, he just cried out too. Maybe you heard him. But it's feeling that fullness of everything. That's why I'm doing this right now tonight. that and just because I love doing art magic. Art magic is powerful magic. It's creative magic. And it brings, for me, it brings me out of here into here and through the creation with my hands. So right now I'm cutting stuff as I'm talking with you. And that's where this work goes. And really what it comes right down to is, how do we show up fully in our lives? As I move forward on this journey, I'm really one of the things that I've really kind of had to ask myself, and it's really come out lately, is like, how do I want to show up on this journey? I don't have all the answers, and I realize that. I realize how much of a pressure that is that we put ourselves through to have all the answers, but I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of ideas and thoughts, and sometimes I have fear, the holy glue, doubt, but I'm gonna put some glue now on and start creating this collage. But what I also have is I have choice. That's what magic brings us. It brings us choice. How do we choose to show up? How do we choose to shape our lives? We will never have all the answers. And if we did, that would be kind of boring if you think about it, because if you had all the answers, there would be no reason to explore or discover. But I want to explore and discover. That's why I'm doing this magical work right now. That's why I decided to do this live. I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole time, and sorry, folks, it's kind of getting used to these. I'm not going to go and do the whole ritual live like the entire time with you. I figured I would just talk about like what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. But nonetheless, I think it's the other one now that I'm kind of a little. Yeah, there we go. Still getting used to it. Sorry, folks, but this is a little bit of an adjusting to something I'm not used to using earbuds like this. So it's been a little adjustment. If I'm being fully in integrity here with you, which I am. Um, but it's not about having all the answers. It's about showing up fully present. And what I realize is I can't show up fully present if I'm not in integrity with myself. Because how could I be in integrity with anyone else if I'm not in integrity with myself? And integrity for me means there's an embodiment aspect to it. It's about being in fully with the choices that I make. Instead of regretting them, instead of second guessing myself, it's about fully being embodied and present with what is now and acting in integrity with my values. I think for the magicians out there, this is really an important truth. Magically, when we are acting from integrity, we are acting in full alignment with ourselves. It doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. I think we're all discovering right now what that reality is like because we're having to in one form or another face it in our lives. But it's absolutely essential. So I'm going to continue to cut and glue and paste, and that's what's going on here. And that's the ritual of the final harvest. And what I would share with you is like think about your own final harvest. You right now is the final harvest. What is it that you're carrying with you from this last year into the new year? into the new year of your life. Not January 1st new year, but into the long endarkenment of winter, which will then go into spring and come into summer and come into fall and begin the whole cycle again. We live cyclical patterns. We're in this cycle right now. Step fully into it with me. Take a moment and consider your final harvest, whatever that is. What is the final harvest that you are carrying with you from this year? And know that as you carry it with you, you create the opportunities to seed the year coming with the boundless potential of that harvest. That harvest is a representation of all the work you've done throughout the rest of your life to get to this point. Really, that's where we're at. That's where I'm at. I'm at 49 years of age, and all the work I've done to get me to this point, everything that I've lived, all the experiences I've had has brought me to this point. And I'm going to carry that with me into this next year, into a theme of integrity, embodied presence. And then the carrying of that, I will allow that to seed my life with whatever it is that I need to fully bring into play in order to align that into my life, knowing that it will lead me to deeper truths, greater mysteries, and the fullness of my service to myself, to my beloved, and to my communities, which includes this community. Because you, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this later on, you are my community. You are the people I serve. This work isn't about this work isn't about anything else other than showing up in full service to you, in presence with you, embodied in integrity. And those words can be pretty loaded in some ways. Those words are powerful. And we can load them as well. And so I'm loading them through this very act, not just the collage that I'm creating, but this very live stream thing that I'm doing right now in this discussion. And welcome Noctua. But I'm doing this from a very purposeful place. I am seeding the intention into this community, this magical experiments community that all of us are part of. I'm seeing the intention that there will be embodied presence and integrity in the work that we do and in the service that I give to all of you this coming year. We're at the final harvest. What will you carry with you into this next year? What will you carry with you? All the experiences that you've learned that you will seed this year with. That's really the question of the final harvest. The final harvest is all the lessons that we've learned, all the experiences that we've had up to this point, bringing us in. So thank you for watching. You get a chance to watch through all of it. If you're here partway live, I'll have it out there in a little bit. And thank you for being here. Thank you for the fullness of your presence and your company here. Thank you for being part of this community and allowing me to be of service to you. And I look forward to doing more of that work with you. All right. I'm going to continue on here and create my collage. Have a lovely rest of your Halloween, Samhain evening.